Hello, pals. Welcome back to the channel. Thanks for being here. So, this has been quite an adventure, and it looks like naughty old NASA is up to their old tricks again. So, if you're not aware, I grew up just as I'm sure most of the world did, really admiring NASA. They seem to represent the absolute best of us. I even watched the Space Shuttle Columbia take off at one point. Um, but it seems they've got a bit of a mottled history with telling the truth when it comes to UAP. There is quite a record of their live streams and video feeds being abruptly cut off when anomalous objects appear on screen, which are later described as things like ice crystals and reflections and all sorts of everything short of seagulls, basically. So, yesterday we had certainly the most dramatic looking footage captured by NASA, and I have stabilized it, I've cleaned it up and zoomed in. So what we're going to do is go through it frame by frame. I'm not saying it's a spaceship or 3i Atlas or anything ridiculous like that. I'm going to leave that to you. It's a totally open discussion. But what it is really weird. So first, let's have a look at the footage at normal speed, but this is sharpened and heavily stabilized.
The work volume, we're going to have the UV lights running for decon, and we don't want you entering that work volume while it's still in work.
Absolutely. I will not do anything inside the work volume. There you go. Thanks for the heads up.
Excellent config. You're very welcome. And just to kind of smooth things over, when we do come back, KU, you'll be on space to ground 3 for your ops today with Shankini.
Agree with Shankini. Thanks.
Pretty dramatic, eh? Okay, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to show you the actual video editing software where we can go frame by frame and really zoom in, because there's a number of things that only just get weirder the closer you look at this object. I'll explain that during the process so it's easier to see, but I think you're going to like this. All right, let's get into the details. So I'll play it at normal speed until it starts turning up. Now you will see there are a number of, I'm going to call them particles, moving at an equal speed, moving across from right to left. There's one there. See here? Keep your eye on that because it all moves at the same speed. So that makes me think that maybe this object is stationary. That's our little thing. Now we're about due for our friend to turn up. Look at this. So let's get a good look at you. Now, look at these two, the blue and the red point. I don't know if they're like a lens flare, but it seems like it occludes them for a second and then they appear again. And then there's this little particle here which comes down, which is weird. It's so strange. Okay, now, this is where it gets trippy. So, we've got this kind of arrowhead looking shape. Now, if this was passing into normal shadow, like obviously satellites and all sorts of things in orbit do when they stop catching the sun's rays, there's what they call the terminator line, and it would all disappear uniformly when it gets to this point where the first thing starts going. But you'll notice this and this part start to fade at the same time, which is very strange. But then you'll see if you look at these stars here in the background, they start to get occluded or eclipsed by our now invisible object as it continues across. But it's like you can still see through it. Here, look at the brightness here compared to when the object would be at its widest point across it. I mean, if I had a fertile imagination, I'd say that was optical camouflage, but without knowing what the object is, I don't want to turn this into another ridiculous three-eye atlas story. Now, this is interesting. So I'm guessing that the object's about here. Look at these stars. It moves across. Okay. So it's now disappeared. Scooch across. Now, you'll see it reappear on the left hand of the screen. I'm going to wind it back to where we last see it. Okay, so you will see it disappears on this line, on this horizontal, but it reappears up here. So I don't think there's any evidence for the camera moving because these other objects remain stationary. But let me show you what I'm talking about. So that's the line that we're looking at here. And then when it comes back, hello, top left. So let's get zoomed in again and see what we can see. Ooh, look at that. Trying very hard not to swear because this is the first time I've seen this footage and that is wild. Now I know we've got the Leonid meteor showers, so maybe it's an absolutely enormous arrowhead-shaped meteor with fire on it at different points, but I think that's pretty tricky to accept. Here again, if we move and show you these stars, you can see it eclipses or occludes. There we go. That is so weird. There's definitely a solid object, but then you can also see some things vaguely through it. I'm kind of reminded of all these black triangle sightings that we have where people say it just goes invisible or just vanished rather than zooming off. Look at this. There we go. And again, that if you look at this little star that's going to appear here in a second, it's gone, but it kind of reappears within the structure there. And then pops out the back. And then just as it gets to the left-hand side of our screen, NASA decided to call it a day. So, what do you think? I haven't got a clue. It just looks really weird to me, and that's what I find so interesting. There's people on the internet saying it's a reflection of an instrument cluster, but what instrument cluster would be all these weird different brightness lights in a triangular formation, and why aren't there any different colors, and why aren't they appearing anywhere else, and why does it go in this way and then come in? It just doesn't add up to me. It looks more like an object outside of the window, and perhaps it's stationary but the ISS is moving, because you can see those particles at the start all moving at the same speed. Who knows? I'm not an expert, so I'm not going to tell you what to think, but I'd like to hear your opinions. If you feel like this video was worth a coffee, I would really, really appreciate that because I've got about 3 hours sleep. And I'll see you for the next one. Take care.